I've heard it my entire life. Just buy a Honda. It'll never break. And when it comes to cars, buy a Toyota. The thing will probably outlive you. If you have been around motorcycle long enough, you've heard some version of this too. Certain brands eventually reach this almost mythical status. Not just reliable, but somehow untouchable. Like they exist outside the normal rules of mechanic failure. Now, to be fair, I'm not saying these reputations came from nowhere. A lot of Honda motorcycles really are known for being dependable, low maintenance, low drama, built to last. And honestly, I believe that. But over the years, I start to notice something interesting. There's a huge difference between usually reliable and basically impossible to kill. And somehow motorcycle culture has a habit of turning one into the other. And this isn't just a Honda thing. Every brand eventually develops its own mythology. Some bikes are considered bulletproof. Some are known for oil leaks. Some supposedly have electrical systems that never stop causing problems. And sometimes the funny part is, once a brand gets labeled a certain way, people start treating the exact same issue completely differently. A small oil leak on one bike becomes, yeah, that's normal. On another brand? See, that's why I never buy one. Same problem, different label, completely different reaction. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized this probably happens for a pretty simple reason. Most riders don't fully understand mechanics, but we do understand reputation. And more importantly, we trust it. If someone tells you, I put 100,000 miles on one thing, only basic maintenance, never had a problem, that story becomes powerful. And eventually, you start repeating it too. But what almost never gets mentioned is, how was the bike ridden? Was it maintained properly? Was it mostly highway miles? Did it live in a garage? Was the owner gentle with it or constantly abusing it? Because the truth is, reliability is rarely just about the machine itself. Two people can own the exact same motorcycle. One rides it for years without a single issue. The other starts having problems almost immediately. That doesn't necessarily mean one story is fake. It just means reality is usually more complicated than the legend. And honestly, motorcycles ain't even unique here. Old Toyotas, Casio watches, ThinkPads, Nokia phones. Every industry has its own version of you can't kill this thing. At some point, durability stopped being just a characteristic. It slowly becomes a part of the brand's identity. But I think what's really happening underneath all of this has less to do with mechanics and more to do with people. Because for most riders, especially newer riders, buying a motorcycle can feel overwhelming. You don't fully understand the machine. You don't want expensive problem. You don't want regret. And you definitely don't want to feel like you made the wrong choice. So naturally, people start looking for a safe answer. And sometimes just buy a Honda stops being mechanic advice. It becomes emotional reassurance. And once we buy the bike, something else quietly starts happening too. The motorcycle stops being just a motorcycle. It becomes connected to our judgment, our taste, our decision. So when someone criticizes the brand, even fairly, it can start feeling strangely personal. And that's usually when buyers enters the conversation. Good experience get repeated, bad experience get minimized. And over time, the label becomes stronger than the reality itself. I used to have brand loyalty too. Not just with motorcycles, with all kinds of things. But the older I get, the less I believe in perfect brands. These days, I'm less interested in defending logos and more interested in understanding products for what they actually are. Because eventually I realized something. When people start calling a brand unbreakable, they were usually no longer talking about mechanics anymore. They were talking about a collective behavior that's been repeated so many times. It started to feel like truth